The death penalty was introduced to the United States by early colonizers from Britain. In 1808, Captain George Kendall was hanged in Jamestown, Virginia. This was the first recorded use of capital punishment in America. In many colonies, minor crimes, such as the rejection of the king or robbery, were punishable by death. Later, the death penalty only included serious crimes, such as witchcraft, rape, and murder. Soon, American settlers became influenced by European philosophers and their writings against the death penalty. Thomas Jefferson even attempted to introduce a bill proposing abolition. However, it was defeated by one vote. Finally, in the 1800s, reformers began to show their antagonism towards the death penalty, and in 1846, Michigan became the first state to abolish capital punishment. Some states followed, but others converted to less favorable methods of execution, mainly electric chairs and gas chambers. In 1972, the Supreme Court ruled against the death penalty in Furman v. Georgia. However, in 1976, the decision was overturned. Today, the death penalty is legal in 32 states. Although not many people consider the legal requirements when deciding their stance on capital punishment, they are actually very important. In fact, the appeals process is considered to be a deciding factor of the humanity of capital punishment. Many people argue that the average length of 8.5 years between the sentencing and the conviction is tortuous enough. The most important legal aspect when dealing with the death penalty is deciding which crimes deserve it. Part of the reason the appeals process takes so long is that each state has very specific definitions of what is eligible, most of which involve first-degree murder, usually with additional stipulations. The days of lynching are mostly gone, but hanging is still a legal way of administering capital punishment, along with electrocution, gassing, lethal injections, and even firing squads. However, all states primarily use the lethal injection. There are several reasons why many people support the death penalty. Capital punishment is the ultimate warning against crimes, making criminals less likely to break a serious law. Most people also agree that the death penalty provides closure for victims. If a loved one of a murder victim knows that the killer is dead, he or she may feel more secure. Additionally, the death penalty helps to fight the problem of overcrowding in our nation's jails. Even if a prisoner is sentenced to life without parole, he or she has many more chances to kill inside of the prison. Modern technology, such as DNA testing, allows for incredibly accurate evidence that leads to almost indisputable guilt or innocence. There have been many cases where the majority of the public supported the death penalty. For example, Timothy McVeigh was sentenced to death after bombing Oklahoma City, killing 168 people, including 19 children. Several hundred others were injured. The investigation of the bombing was one of the most exhaustive in FBI history and left little room to doubt McVeigh's sentence. According to the Gallup poll, 81% of people supported the execution of McVeigh, and 22% of people who generally opposed the death penalty felt that McVeigh was an exception. The heinous nature of McVeigh's crime convinced many that the death penalty is justified.
Pancuronium bromide is given to stop McVeigh's breathing. He takes 2 last deep breaths. 713, the final drug, potassium chloride, is injected to stop his heart. 1 minute later, it's over. McVeigh's lips turn light blue, his skin light yellow, as he dies, eyes wide open.
3, 2, 1.
There is also much opposition to the death penalty. One argument is that the defendants often lack resources and are not as prepared for a death penalty case as they should be. In addition, many people on death row suffer from severe mental illnesses and therefore cannot fully comprehend their crimes and the consequences, making the death penalty inhumane. Even more controversial is the fact that physicians who administer the execution violate the Hippocratic Oath. The total cost of execution and the appeals process is often greater than the cost of a life sentence in prison. People say that killing a criminal cannot undo someone's wrongdoings, and it does not prevent further crimes. We should instead spend money on prevention programs rather than executions.
That's too severe. So severity, the death penalty is probably the most severe punishment that we can have. That's not going to deter people from committing crime. And we see that in other types of crimes or offenses, that if we increase the severity, it doesn't cut down on crime, but it actually increases crime. So it's really weird. There's some research to indicate that those states that do have the death penalty have higher criminal rates, and especially right after they have an execution, that they see spikes in crime rates as well. So the severity certainly isn't effective. And when we look at the certainty and swiftness, with the requirements from the Supreme Court after they brought back the death penalty in the 70s, they require now that it has an automatic appeals process, whether the defendant wants the appeal or not. So oftentimes it's a long time between the actual sentence of the death penalty and the actual execution, something on average of in like 9 or 10 years, maybe even more, between the actual sentence and the actual death penalty. So in terms of certainty or swiftness, it's not an effective deterrent either.
One of the strongest cases against the death penalty is the chance of executing an innocent person. About 1 in every 7 people on the death row is eventually proven innocent. Some are proven innocent too late. There have been many convicts sentenced to death whose guilt was dubious. For example, Carlos de Luna was executed in 1989 for stabbing to death a gas station clerk. However, many investigators have concluded that shoddy police work, the failure to pursue another suspect, and a weak defense caused an innocent man to die on death row. Eyewitness statements conflicted each other, and the police failed to follow the lead that Carlos Hernandez, who looked like de Luna, might have been the real murderer.
It bothers me right now that a wrong man got put to death.
Eddie Garza says he told the detective leading the investigation another more violent criminal named Carlos Hernandez was bragging about the crime. That lead investigator told the Tribune Garza never told her that, and she followed up every lead. Your informants are telling you on the street you got the wrong guy.
That's the information that I was getting on the street. He told other people, yeah, Carlos de Luna took a fall for me.